Who doesn't need a quick laugh to go along with some food for thought? Hello, I'm Dan Hill, the host of Scrambled Eggs, tips and tactics for tackling tough business problems. Today's guest is Mark Botros. He is the management consultant and the host of the podcast Live Works. Mark, you've been given 5 terms and a diabolical definition for each that come from my new book, Blah, 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 a snarky guide to office lingo. There's a little truth in every joke. Of those 5, please read aloud your favorite and explain why you chose it.
So my favorite one was managing expectations, telling the client small lies over time rather than one big lie at the end of the project. I absolutely loved this term. Coming up with it was a lot of fun, but it's a concept that's very near and dear and central to my heart in terms of how I manage and conduct myself in business. And if I were to turn this snarky definition on its head and actually give some serious insight to this, I would say that managing expectations is really one of the most important communication tools that we have in the business world. Legendary coach John Madden once said that even multi-million-dollar athletes need to know where to be, when, what to be wearing, and what we're going to be doing. So if that's true for multi-million-dollar athletes, according to John Madden, then surely that would be true for my boss, my director, my VP, even my CEO or a board of directors. So my tactic or tip in response to this snarky definition would be, that we do need to make every effort to manage expectations appropriately.
Sure. Well, I love the John Wooden analogy. In fact, I read that he would make sure his players tied their tennis shoes correctly, their basketball shoes correctly before they hit the courts. That's how meticulous he was to the details.
That's right.
And then I think you're right. Managing expectations really goes that cliche about trust is the emotion of business.
It is.
Because, are you going to honor what you promised? When I started my company, my father was a 3M executive, and I said, please give me your advice as to what you didn't like from all your vendors and the consultants that worked with you in handling 3M's printed Post-it note operation. And he said, the most important thing I can tell you, Dan, is don't plagiarize yourself. Keep a hold of your honesty. I said, even if that project didn't quite work out, but they knew that you were truthful, then you'll get more work and you'll have a good relationship. And I think that's right. So important. So let's turn to your book. You have a forthcoming book you've been hard at work at for a while now.
That's right.
Spectology. Cool title. Can you tell us a bit about the book and then also tell us about a key term from the book and what its significance is for you?
Well, it really keys off of the term that I chose, managing expectations. The book entirely is about that, the study of expectations. And what's interesting about it is that I get into what is known, or rather not known, about how important expectations are to us as people and how expectations function even neurologically. So it's a really interesting, very deep dive at this point into expectations and into something that we talk about, and we even mentioned, like we'll say to say somebody on our sales team or operations team, be sure you manage the client's expectations, because we know it's important enough that we need to do that, but we don't really talk about how to do that or what's going on internally for people when they have an expectation and things like that. So in the book, I do a really deep dive about the different types of expectations, different type of expectors. So your typical sort of quadrant and where you might fall in that. And we talk about expectation, its relation to beliefs, and how it's wired into our neurology. So it's actually a really, really important thing that I don't think we really discuss too much.
Oh, I love that. I mean, it is so important. And you're right. As a project is moving toward completion, I've had expectations. I am expecting a summit that I'm arriving at. But
That's
what
right.
happens if it turns into a cliff and I get pushed over the side of it because I got lied to basically, it didn't happen as I expected.
Absolutely. And people, like John Madden said, people simply do better when they know what to expect. If they
Yeah.
just
Yeah.
know, their reaction will be far less severe than if they didn't know.
Yeah.
And that's what the book really gets into. We get and I get into how expectation really drives our emotions. And that again, it's an area that's really not been studied. The concept of conceptual expectation. But wait for the forthcoming book. We'll get into it. It's a really interesting study, and I've really aligned my entire operating system around expectation and managing expectations, and it's, I'd say, done fairly well for me over the last several years since I came to that insight.
Cool. Well, I think when the book comes out, my suggestion is you use the old Carly Simon song, "Anticipation is driving me crazy." So,
Sounds good. Thank you for that tip.
yeah, absolutely. So thank you so much, Mark. This has been episode number 19 of Scrambled Eggs. I'm your host, Dan Hill, and also the author of Blah, 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 a snarky guide to office lingo. Thanks, Mark.
My pleasure.